One of the things that, I really appreciate is that the people who came before me built a lot of what's here, and we've built on that. I think we were always trying to do something more.
It was the early 1950s when the first open heart surgery with a heart-lung machine was performed. We celebrate that day, May 6th, every year.
In 1960, open heart surgery was in its infancy. We didn't have an open heart surgery program in Stockton. In 1967, we developed a cardiac cath and coronary angiogram program, but didn't have an open heart surgery.
During those days, when we started the program here at St. Joseph's, we were pretty much on the cutting edge of a lot of the technology. As new technology became available, we were pretty quick to adopt it.
I joined Stockton Cardiology Medical Group with Lonnie Kamenensky and Edward Call. Lonnie had already established a cardiac cath lab here in the late 1960s, but they couldn't do coronary angiogram. And then in '72, that got started. We had a full cardiology service. In fact, St. Joseph's had one of the earliest coronary care units in California.
The program did its first heart surgery 48 years ago, but has taken about 50 years since the first cardiac surgeon showed up, Dr. James Morrissey.
Remember, I drove with my dog from St. Louis here in a U-Haul, dragging an old Volkswagen Fastback, driving down 99, no air conditioning in the truck. It was 114 degrees on July 10th of 1972.
I came out here in 1973. We did our first open heart surgery in 1974 on the day before Thanksgiving. That was a wild time. Our patient lived in Lodi. He was a farm worker, and I would drive Dr. Morrissey's Porsche up to Lodi. I didn't have a car at the time. I got around on a bicycle. I would drive up to Lodi, pick him and his interpreter up, and the three of us would come back in this two-seater for his appointments in Stockton.
Dr. William Hebert, who also had gone to WashU Med School in St. Louis, had this vision to start a cardiac surgical program in Stockton. So he came back to Barnes Hospital and invited Dr. Richard Clark, who ultimately became the president of the National Heart Institute in Washington, to come out here and look at the program. He came out here, looked at it, came back and told Dr. Hebert that he was going to probably stay in academics. He invited me up to his office and told me about this place out here, and he said, Jim, I was going to be on the junior faculty at WashU, and he said, you might find this sort of interesting, but there's this man who wants to start a heart program in Stockton, California, and I think you might be able to pull it off.
Most good surgeons, you need a good brain to have good hands. And with Jim Morrissey, he has a good brain and a good hand.
Dr. Hebert was well known here. He was a really good man, a good surgeon. He had never done cardiac surgery to speak of. They did one, what we call inflow occlusion, atrial septal defect, and one patient died and the other one survived. There were two. He just thought that Stockton was ready. So he convinced me of that, but we were probably the only two people in San Joaquin County who thought that Stockton was ready for heart surgery.
Dr. Morrissey is someone who has a positive attitude about everything, and that has, I think, continued to today.
Dr. Morrissey and I share an office, so I get to spend a lot of time interacting with Dr. Morrissey. Dr. Morrissey is, He's not like anyone else you're gonna meet, whether he was a physician or just a mountain climber.
In 1972, we were fortunate to have Dr. Morrissey come to town and establish an open heart surgery team. You have to have a team in order for everything to work. So he trained the special nurses, he trained the bypass pump technician, he trained the anesthesiologist and surgical assistants in order to form a team.
There were a number of machines that we needed that aren't your typical equipment in a hospital. One was the heart-lung machine. Another one was the hemodynamic monitoring machine. Basically, it monitors blood pressure, EKG, a number of other parameters. And at that time, it was relatively advanced monitoring. Dr. Morrissey purchased them because the hospital wasn't going to. And we used them to help train the nurses.
He actually set up an experimental surgical unit at the University of Pacific, the School of Pharmacy, and they used an animal to practice on, open heart surgery.
The first heart surgery done here was in November of 1974. I can remember that because I was involved with the pre-op care and the post-op care, and Dr. Morrissey did the surgery successfully.
As a result, I was impressed by the way Dr. Morrissey treated his patient after the open heart surgery when they were recovering. Frequently, he would spend the whole night sleeping next to the intensive care unit to make sure that the patient survived and kept going.
11 years ago, I turned 40, and I had arranged a park play date for my two little ones and myself and a friend at Lodi Lake. While I was at Lodi Lake, I was having a heart attack and didn't realize that the symptoms I was experiencing were the symptoms of a heart attack. A week later, I experienced those same symptoms, and they brought me to St. Joseph's. They found out that I had SCAD, which is short for spontaneous coronary arterial dissection, and Dr. Morrissey was there to the rescue. Dr. Morrissey was a father figure. My dad couldn't be by my bedside, and Dr. Morrissey brought that comfort a father would bring to his daughter. And he held my hand at bedside and explained what my options were. And he listened to my fears and just kind of guided me to make the best decision for myself and for my family. After having open heart surgery, Dr. Morrissey was there again at bedside holding my hand and telling me how proud he was of just being brave and making it through it.
I don't think I would have done very well in academic medicine because the professors and you don't really get a chance to develop any kind of relationship with your patients because there's all these people in between you and the patient. And as an academician, you don't get a chance to sit down and talk to them and, find out what's really important.
If I approach them with a very difficult patient and say, this patient does have a high mortality, his approach has always been positive. No negative, positive.
I think our first fellowship-trained cardiologist showed up maybe a few months earlier than he did. For us to be where we are today, really, it started with those few people who were the first specialist to join our medical staff in either cardiology or in cardiac surgery.
He's charismatic. Has stayed on top of the literature, the technology, the innovation, and wants to continuously provide that to the community. And I think that's what makes Dr. Morrissey's career so unique, is he has chosen to continue to learn. But he also chooses to, as the new people come in and they only know the new way, he will show them and explain to them the old way also. Yes, I know this is the way we you're trained to do it now, but this is the way I was trained to do it, and my outcomes, my process and procedures and the way I do it still works. And regardless of the new ways and the new technologies, there are times, so in these TAVR procedures, if there was a complication during that procedure, the fix majority of the time would be traditional open heart surgery.
Well, most of the people that started with Dr. Morrissey are either retired as myself or dead. And somehow he is still going strong. And you've really got to admire the kind of hours that he puts in every day, every week. I don't know another physician that can hold a candle to the kind of schedule he keeps for himself.
He's done so much, just so much work, and when I think about it, and so much to help people. And, honestly, he really thinks he's the best person to take care of every patient, and in most cases he is. And so my message would be thank you. I think that he's an amazing human being.
I don't care how much swagger you have, way down, if you have any brains at all, down the back of your neck, you're a little anxious about how things are going to turn out. You never exactly know what you're going to get into when you get in there. So even now, after 50 years, you just don't walk in thinking, well, this is a piece of cake, because it never is.
Because tears are liquid emotion, and sometimes there just aren't words to express to someone how important they are to your life. Dr. Morrissey saved my life, and it's because of him that I'm here today, and it's because of him that I have more time with my children and my husband and my family, and that I get to live life to its fullest. Dr. Morrissey listened to me, and I am forever grateful.